Welcome to my quest for a 40-pound carp. This video is going to follow me on my journey trying to catch a new personal best from this beautiful farm pond. It's been a long while since I last caught a 40-pound carp. In fact, my first 40 was from a small park lake. I think that film was probably the one that put our channel on the map. And I remember, I have great, very fond memories of that time. However, since then, it's been tricky. I've fished a lot. I've fished all over Europe. I caught some massive fish out in France and stuff, but back home in the UK, a 40-pound carp for me is a seriously big fish. With my heart set on catching a new personal best, I needed to fish somewhere with big carp in. I know that sounds very obvious, but many of the waters around where I live, the biggest fish in the lake is 15 pounds, 20 pounds. My brother and I really enjoyed our time fishing on this farm pond. We treated it as a sort of special occasion. We'd go down here. We thought that if we fished it too much, we'd get spoiled. The fishing back then was quite easy, and we'd catch 3 or 4 fish each trip, all of them really beautiful. I think it was 2018 or 2017 or something. We got kind of busy. We took the YouTube channel full time. We had to make videos. We wanted to get sort of more content made on a range of venues. And that just meant that we didn't forget about the lake, we just ignored it. We went and fished other places. And it was only recently when I started thinking about this quest for a 40 that I got talking to a friend of mine, and he said, oh, you should go down the farm pond. You might get a 40 out of there. I was like, a 40 from the farm pond? The biggest fish in there is just over 30. And he went, oh no, those carp have grown. It's like I can see blue sky just there, and that's the direction that it's coming from. Oh, look at it. See, I knew it. Now, we didn't just stop recording and start again on a different day. It did just rain. The winter of 2021 was wet, cold, and pretty miserable, as most winters tend to be in this beautiful country of ours. But yeah, as the weather started improving a little bit, and as we moved from winter into spring, I decided now it's time to get back on the farm pond and begin my campaign. The weather is finally looking a bit better. I'm loading up my van with my fishing gear because I'm going out for my first session of the year at the farm pond today. My first session was tough. I sat behind 3 motionless rods for a night or 2. Didn't see any fish, didn't see any signs of fish. A week or 2 later, I returned and decided to fish the same part of the lake. We are back on the banks of the farm pond. I came down last week, blanked badly, didn't see anything. Last night was pretty quiet. I had one little bleep, which was probably just the wind.
Or a mouse running through a line.
Running through the bobbins. Yeah, it was tough. Not really much more to say other than I'm not sure when my first bite from this place is going to come this year. Or even if it is at all. If I catch something, it could be incredible. But at the moment, catching something is quite the challenge. Session number 3 went the same way as session number 1 and 2, with no fish. It was certainly, I don't know, getting on my nerves a little bit, I think. It was just the fact that I was getting down, getting the rods out where I thought the fish might be, and then the next morning, having seen nothing, having heard nothing during the night, I was packing away and going home. I was mad busy at the time, had loads of editing to get on with, but I managed to find an overnighter when I could get back down the lake. Typically, it happened to be like the coldest night of the year. I woke to a thick frost. Everything was frozen. The bite alarms, the rod, the reel, the bivvy, the unhooking mat, the net was frozen solid. It's safe to say that that session didn't produce any fish either. I did eventually get lucky. I was just day fishing. It was a mild day. I thought, let's get back down the pond, give it a go. I packed light, not a lot of gear, and just lowered a couple of rods in the margins where I saw some mud stirring up. Finally, I've hooked something. Sending up bubbles. Plumes of bubbles coming up. Wow, nice. Yeah. Well, that was a long battle. That thing held on. Well, I've been waiting long enough, but it's finally happened. I've got myself one of the carp out of this lake. That fish was the one that broke the string of blank sessions, got me out of a hole, got the ball rolling. It was an incredible 34 or 35 pound common. Not the 40 that I was after, but a pretty good start. I was over the moon. As I had caught on a day session, my confidence was sky high. I felt like I didn't really need to set up the bivvy and stay overnight. I could just get down the pond, have a little go, drop a rod in here and there, and maybe nick another bite. But on my next session, they didn't seem to be feeding on the bottom. There certainly wasn't, stirred up water or clouded water. There was no bubbles coming up. And in fact, what I found was the majority of the lake's stock basking and cruising around in the sort of shallow, reedy end of the lake. I remember trying to stalk the fish in this lake when we first joined up. Back then I think I fed mixers and fished with a big chunk of bread and tried to get them to take that, and they were having none of it. And I tried quite a few times back then to catch a fish from this lake stalking, but to no avail. That was where I thought I had to maybe fish a bit more subtly on this session. So instead of a big hook and bread and dog biscuits, I just went with natural baits, maggots, worms, the sort of thing that I could just gently flutter down in front of a fish in the off chance that they might suck it in. I'd watch the fish feeding in the margins. I say feeding in the margins, I'd watch them sitting in the edge, and tadpoles would sometimes swim past their nose, and it didn't look like they were sort of feeding on them, but they would almost just get irritated by them and just suck them in out of nowhere. So in the same way that you'd fish for salmon with a lure, sort of to charge them up and aggravate them and just make them go and grab it out of, I don't know, instinct, I thought I'd try and do the same thing with a worm or a bunch of maggots floated past their nose. What I found was if you cast in front of 100 fish and fluttered the maggots down in front of them, almost all of them would ignore it. Probably 90% of them ignore it. In fact, many of them would spook off of it. They hated it. The bait landing in front of them and falling down. They would, I just had a beep on my rod. Yeah, they would spook. They would just dart off into the distance. They hated the bait landing anywhere near them. But then every now and then, one of them would see it falling, swim towards it, and suck it in. It's certainly a strong one. But I'm still fighting this fish. It's taken me through into the next swim down. Yes, there he is, in the net. Using this method helped me catch 2 30-pound carp, and these two fish could not have been any more different. The first fought so hard, absolutely pulled my arm off, and was a beautiful linear, 34 pounds I think it was. And the next fish was ridiculous.
There we go. Yes! Great, thank you.
It was like a massive golden coin, a football. It was chunkier and deeper bodied than it was long. At a time when fishing on the bottom and fishing over beds of bait just wasn't working, and many of the other members on the lake were struggling to catch anything, I was pretty happy that the free lining maggots and worms method had really paid off with a couple of good fish.
They all been on pepperami?
All the ones on the bottom, yeah. A few years ago I used to fish with pop-ups.
Yeah.
I mostly caught the small ones.
I'm definitely using pepperami on my lake.
It's worth a go. I tend to use pepperami on places where people have fished a lot of boilie, but it's just not really working as well as it did. Because, I don't know, pepperami just, it's good, and it doesn't fall off the hook. Little fish normally can't nibble it off because it's tough, you know. It's good bait. Smelly as well, so if it's silty, I often find that's quite good because it doesn't, you know, sometimes other baits, you reel them in, they smell like slimy silt, but you reel in pepperami and it's pumping out pepperami smells. Now, Alex caught the Park Lake 40 on pepperami.
Okay.
That was good. The owner of this lake actually closes the fishery at the end of April each year, waits until the fish spawn, which is often at some point in May or June, and then reopens once the fish have got their spawning out of the way. It's a way of sort of protecting the fish and yeah, helps them or leaves them to spawn in peace. But what this meant was that in 2021, I just had one more session before the lake was due to close.
I'm gonna catch a beast this session, Alex. I'm breaking my PB. I'm gonna catch a 45-pound scaly mirror. I believe it.
On this session, stalking wasn't going to happen. There was no fish cruising around. It was more sort of overcast weather, definitely cooler than the previous trip.
Well, last night was quiet. No bites apart from bats flying through the lines.
Through summer, autumn and into winter, I didn't actually fish this lake at all. My quest for a 40-pound carp was put on hold, shall we say. Got really busy, loads of other films that we wanted to make, so I didn't really get around to it. And then in January, I think it was, the owner of the lake rung me up and he said, by the way, just so you know, I'm doing some maintenance on the lake. Got to, I don't know, do some liming or treatment of the silt or something. So he drained down the water out of half of the lake. So one half of the lake still had water in and there was fish swimming around in it. The other half had been almost emptied, like he'd pumped all the water out of it. I thought this would be a great opportunity to check it out and, you know, learn what the bottom of the lake actually looks like.
Gives me a really good idea of where the fish are likely to be and where they've fed, like the areas that they've frequented over the last year or so. And it's also given me some tasty spots to try dropping my rigs on when the weather's a bit warmer and once the lake is full again. See that over there? That's an eel. There's a big eel. Carl's getting in the lake.
Yeah, look, it's like
pretending to be a carp.
everywhere else is really squishy and silty, and then this little section here, this little circular patch, and there's a few more over there which have got clay on the bottom. And like the only way that can occur is by fish keeping the silt off of certain areas, like maybe they're scratching on certain areas or they're feeding on them. But yeah, areas where there's like those little hard bits, or over here, these sort of, I don't know, burrowed out holes, that's got to be areas which carp like to spend their time in. The problem is that good spots like that change every year. So when the lake fills back up and the carp are swimming around in this end again, they might be feeding somewhere completely different. This spring I wanted to make my time at the farm pond count. Last year I sort of did an overnighter here. I was away from the lake for a few weeks, and then I'd do a night or two, and my sessions were sporadic and they weren't really timed to good weather. I was just popping down when I could. This spring was going to be different. I had decided I was going to do 2 weeks. I know this sounds crazy, and it was going to be the longest session I've ever done, but I wanted to do 2 weeks of fishing all in one go. I got really organised and prepared, packed loads of food, organised all my camera equipment, was more sort of prepared for this session than I think I've ever been. Eventually the day came, loaded up the van, and I got on the road, ready for my 2-week stint at the farm pond. Goodbye home. See you in a little while. Now on this venue, when you arrive, you have to sort of sign in the hut. This just means that the owner of the lake knows that you're at the lake, so he doesn't have to come down and work out who you are and stuff. So I popped in and signed my name in the book. And in there's also a catch report. I had a little read through the catch report and saw what other people were catching, and a few fish had come out. It was looking promising. Interestingly though, none of the big fish had been caught. I think one of the 40s, but that left quite a lot of fish to go at. I think it's going to build a nest with fur from my microphone. As I barrowed my kit down to the lake, I saw that there was actually a couple of people fishing already. This was annoying, but I still had options. There was still space. There was other swims on the lake, but I didn't want to go and just get set up in the first one I came to. Before I set up my kit for this long session, I wanted to see signs of fish. Because I've got plenty of time on my hands this session, I'm not sort of rushing to get the rods out. I want to take my time, have a really good look around the lake, try and spot signs of fish, work out where the carp are holding up. I haven't seen anything yet, but if I do, then that will give me an idea of where I want to fish for this session. That night at about 11 or 12 o'clock, I couldn't believe my luck. First night of my session, and I'd had a bite. That fish was a low 20, a scaly mirror. I was so happy to be off the mark. Now I'd love to say that the next morning I was up watching the water at dawn, but I wasn't. I was fast asleep in my bed until my other rod decided to just scream off, and this fish was definitely bigger. I could tell from the off that this was a bigger carp. We're hooked into the second fish of the session. Never expected it to get off to such a good start. Finally, it's safely in the net. As I lifted the fish up to the camera and strained at its weight, it must have been a mid-30 at least, I realised and I noticed, a patch of scales on one side, quite distinctive scales, and yeah, I realised it was the same carp that I'd caught almost to the day a year before. So that was kind of frustrating. It was a big carp, I was happy to catch it, but it was one that I'd seen on the bank before. Because of the early success, I was feeling good. I liked the spots I was fishing, it was comfortable, close in the edge, and I'd caught 2. Brilliant. So I decided to stay in that spot for the next couple of nights. That decision was probably the wrong one, because those next couple of nights didn't catch anything. Nothing, not even a bite. The trick always seems to be, even though you've caught one, don't rest on your laurels. Don't just take it for granted. Keep looking for them, because they'll often spook off to a different part of the lake, and you can get another bite if you're willing to move on to them. I walked around the lake and threw a few handfuls of pellets into some margin spots just so I could keep an eye on them. I like to bait up spots quite close into the margins, especially on small lakes like this, because you can then observe and see whether or not the fish are getting on that bait. Are they feeding on it? Is the water going kind of clouded up? And if you start seeing them feeding, well, then you can drop a rig in. But yeah, they didn't really get on the munch. They just wanted to bask in the warm spring sun, and therefore the best approach, in my opinion, was to free line again with the maggots and worms. I was chasing those carp around for a good few hours, making many casts in front of a lot of fish, most of them completely ignoring the bait. But then eventually I spotted a beautiful fully scaled, got the perfect cast, the right distance in front of it, gently twitched the maggots back towards me, and yeah, it took the bait.
Go on. I can't believe that. Flipping got him.
The fish was hooked and it was fighting hard, but my line was going down through the lily pads and then back out the other side. I decided to try and get round to the other side of the lake to get a better line angle and to try and unsnag myself. That didn't really work.
That's my fish. My fish is just down there, hooked, but my line's going through these pads on the other side. So I'm hoping I can ping them out. You're joking. Where's my line even going anymore?
And after a few minutes of trying to, free myself, the fish got off and yeah, left me pretty devastated.
After all of that, then comes off, does my hook in some reeds. Oh, losing fish never feels good. I saw it. It was a fully scaled. Looked like it was close to 30 pounds probably, maybe just over. But it's not on my line anymore. That had my heart racing.
Returning to the spot that I'd baited up just a few hours before, I saw a couple of fish, swimming around, and 1 or 2 of them seemed to be feeding, but they didn't look big. They looked like, to be honest, some of the smallest fish in the lake.
There are some fish right close into the bank down in this margin. I can't quite tell what fish they are, but I'm going to try and get as close to them as I can.
I waded out into the margins. I just rolled my trousers up and stood there in the edge. I sort of held off making a cast as I watched these smaller ones going around. After a bit I thought, you know what, I haven't caught in quite a while. Let's try and catch one of these smaller fish. I dropped the bait in front of one of them, didn't want to know, flicked it in front of another fish, again, wasn't interested. And then I saw a bigger one. I saw one of the best looking carp in the lake. In fact, it's probably one of my favourites, one that I've never caught before, but I'd seen photos of it. I see that come past, flick the maggots out. The bait was sinking, slowly sinking, right in front of its nose, and then bang, it took it.
There we go.
This fish took so much line off of my spool, charging down the margins, I just had to follow it.
I can't stop it, man. I'm running out of line and I can't get around this tree and it's really deep just there. Oh. Hello, mate. Oh, really deep and really cold.
I realised that the fish had gone round the back of the island. Now, I wasn't going to pull that fish back. It was snagged up through the reeds, through the pads. I needed to get out there and try and free it. The boat was at the other end of the lake. I thought, I can probably wade across it. It can't be too deep. About halfway out to the island, I found out it was too deep.
horrible. How is that taking so much line?
Another angler hopped in the boat to come out and help me. I passed him the rod, but as I did so, the line got wrapped around the reel.
Yeah, give it some line, give it some line. Step up, give it, on your barrel, on your barrel.
It meant that we couldn't give any line. So at this point, he was being towed along in the boat by the fish, and I was just swimming along next to the boat, trying to drag the net behind me. It was absolute carnage. Eventually, we got up onto the shallower bar, got the line untangled from the reel.
I didn't know you was getting in as well.
And could then try my best to bring that fish into the net. Finally, that fish went into the net. It was a beast, an absolutely incredible mirror.
Oh my God, what a relief.
But something wasn't right. The hook, during the fight, had fallen from its mouth and ended up re-hooking it in the tail.
I don't even want to see it on the bank. That will make me cry, that will.
People would argue whether that does or doesn't count, but for me, I hadn't got that fish in the net fair and square, and despite it being one of the ones that I dearly wanted to catch, I had to just take one look at it and slip it back without a photo. Having splashed around and swam around the lake for about 25 minutes, I felt like I'd probably spooked and scared off most of the carp. Feeling ever so deflated about that capture, or non-capture, I decided to load up my barrow and just head up the other end of the lake and go for a look up there. To my surprise, I found a few fish feeding in the new swim. The water was coloured and the reeds were knocking every now and then. I got a rod out quickly and decided to set up another rod on a washing line method. The washing line technique enables you to fish the far side of the lake, or quite far away from where you're bivvied up, but without having loads of line actually in the water. So what I did was I walked round to the far side where I'd seen a little bit of coloured water, flicked my rod out, baited up around it, and then used a bank stick with an elastic band at the top of it to sort of connect the line to. I could then walk back to my swim and have my rod, in my swim in front of me, but my rig was actually on the far side with only just a few meters of line out. I just find the fish in here are so spooky, and the second they touch your line, they're gone. So having less line in the water definitely helps with getting more bites. That evening I had a take on the rod that was out by the reeds in front of me. Proper tore off, I could not stop it. It went all the way up to the end of the lake and ended up getting me snagged.
As if he's still on after all of that.
I hopped in my waders and battled this fish in the margins for what felt like ages. The male fish in here fight particularly hard. They've got huge tails, and male fish just seem to have more sort of muscle and less fat. They tend to sort of weigh less, but fight a lot harder. And this fish was no different. Absolutely fought like crazy.
Looks like a mirror, nice mirror. Oh, that's only just gone into the net.
Ended up being a 28-pound mirror. Just as I was about to hold that fish up to the camera to take a photo, the rod that I'd set up on the washing line rig pinged back.
Goodness me, that was exciting. Oh, wow.
Came out the clip, the rod fell slack, tightened up into it, and it was another really good fish.
Yay! Hallelujah!
The owner of the lake was stood with me, and we were both impressed by how much that fish pulled back.
That side is really got some mental little scales on it.
Awesome. The mirror that I caught was really cool, and it was another near 30-pounder, but the fully scaled was something special. That's the sort of fish that I joined this lake to try and catch, and I think it was my biggest ever fully, actually. So I was 4 nights into my 2-week session, and I was ticking off these fish. I was feeling really confident that that 40 wasn't going to be far away. And then I had a phone call to notify me that my pond was leaking. So I had to go home and figure out what was going wrong with that. I had to prepare it as I had someone coming out to re-fiberglass it to get it fixed up. And to be honest, I knew I had to get it done, and I knew I had to sort it out. My pond project has been an ongoing thing for the last few months, but I just didn't want to think about it at this time. I was fishing, I had 2 weeks on the bank, I was catching, and I was fishing a place that has fish that would smash my personal best. I wanted to focus on my fishing, but no, I had to go home and sort out the pond. With the leaks on the pond fixed up and my work caught up on back at home, I've come back down the lake and I'm here still trying for that 40-pound carp. Yesterday, I had an absolutely incredible take, tearing line off the spool. Honestly, when I hooked it, I thought, this is it. This is the one. Eventually bundled that thing into the net and it was big.
Oh, wow.
How big, I was yet to find out. On the scales, this thing went 36, I think it was 36 pounds. The fish was another one of these incredible male mirror carp. Massive tail on it, incredibly powerful, muscular fish. But yeah, not quite the 40 I was after. I've come close, and I've caught some immense fish like over the course of these last 2 seasons. But the 40-pounder still eludes me. My rods are out though, and I've got the next couple of nights to try and make it happen.
I've got quite a few more, but they're in my food bag. I hope that I'd get to eat them myself. That is the rig and hook bait that I use on here pretty much all the time. Pepper Army, tipped off with like a slither of pop-up. The pop-up just removes some of the weight, so when the fish sucks it up, it goes up into their mouth a lot easier. Pepper Army is a seriously good bait, definitely underrated.
With my success fishing the washing line method on my previous trip, I set my traps just a couple of feet from the bank, keeping the majority of my line up and out of the water. I was a little gutted to not receive a bite that evening, but early the next day, the line pinged out from under the elastic band, and I was in.
Morning, mate.
Morning all. I finally got a bite on the washing line method. What, with the bite cam rolling?
Oh, was it rolling?
Yeah.
Nice.
This is my last session before the lake closes. Sort of my last real chance to fish the place before autumn, when I'm not so busy anymore. And this morning has been good. We have got something good going. I just landed one, and I'm hooked up into another fish, which is fighting hard. Get away from those reeds. There's a bird scarer. It's just male humour, isn't it? Oh yeah, it is the one that...
That's a beaut.
I am one happy guy. Oh, it's amazing. It might not be my 40-pounder, but it is unbelievable. Look at that incredible carp. Probably one of the best fish I've caught out of this lake. You ready?
Yeah. Oh no, it's not 40. It's not 40.
It's like, close though.
It's close. It's like 38.
Blimey. That was close.
I'm gonna hurt my back lifting all these big carp. This session has been crazy. And now I've caught this. I've been on the fish, they've been feeding in front of me this trip, and it's been a real good one. Sadly though, the last session that I'm gonna do on here for a little while, getting busy fishing elsewhere, but I'll be back in the autumn to get that 40 pounder. The linear was a fish that I'd caught before, so I got my cameraman to hop in and help me hold the carp up for some photos.
Oh God. Oh Christ almighty.
Bit heavy, Cal.
Flipping heavy.
It's not often you can share moments like this with friends, let alone colleagues, and I was super glad that Cal was able to join me on this brilliant session. What a morning, thanks for sharing it with me, man.
That's alright.
The farm pond came good. Absolute beasts. I'd now caught 5 30-pound carp in a week, but with so much to catch up on back at home, we began packing away. Together though, we joked that the rods could still go with a 40-pounder in these last 10 minutes. I'm in! I was just about to leave, literally just about to reel in the rods. The bivvy is down, everything's packed away, apart from the rods, and the line is pinged out of the clip, and I'm in.
Told you, it's always the wedge you're packing up. Yeah. Always.
It's not a bad one. There's no way that it's a 10 pound, like, you know, one of the 15, 20 pounders. Wow, what a scrap. Look at, oh, it's a lump as well, and that is a seriously big carp. That might be 40. No? Has it ever done 40? I don't know.
It'll be 34.
Oh, it's got to be like
40.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
This fish was last out 34, no?
That's 40 pound 4 ounces all day long.
It actually is, Cal. Look at that.
40 pound 4 ounces. Unbelievable.
I'm a little bit speechless right now. I can't believe I'm saying this. It's my first 40 pounder from the lake. I thought my first 40 would be one of those big commons, but no. This 2-tone mirror turned up, pulled my arm off, and made me very, very happy. Good session, man. Pretty good.
That was crazy.
I'm actually ready to go home now.
Oh yeah. You've caught enough 30s for the day and a 40.